Grow Great is a city government leadership podcast with Lisa Norris and me, Randy Cantrell. Each week we share insights, experiences, and wisdom to help you and your leadership grow great. Our website is growgreat.com.
Years ago, I wanted one of my goals. I don't know about you, Randy. One of my goals, I was like, man, I want to work for Southwest Airlines. Like and I say years ago, this is a good 20. But they always had fun. Every time I flew, they were in shorts.
You want to wear those hot pants and those white boots?
And, they looked like they were having fun. You saw the videos where they're having fun with the people on the flight and just laughing and kind of cutting up. And it's not the way normal business is done. They just weren't. They were a standalone organization, stood out from all the rest of the airlines. And I was like, man, I want to work in HR for them. That was my goal for years, like 10 years. And so everything I did was, okay, what do I need to know? So I would study private insurance versus public insurance. When I took my SHRM, it's got labor relations and private type insurance things in addition to public sector stuff. But that gets to the point of goals. And then when I met you in life, we were talking about just when we got to know each other, what is it you are trying to get to? You were asking me. And I said, well, man, Don and I really want land. We've wanted land. And I remember as we talked about, I want land. I'd love to have land. And I remember your comment was, well, what are you doing about it? I'm like, I don't know, Randy. I'm wishing. That's what I'm doing. I'm wishing.
Hoping and dreaming.
You asked, and you've stated it before to me in just general conversations. There has to be a path. Have you ever not achieved something? And I forgot your words, but have you ever not achieved something you were striving for? And I thought back and I'm like, well, no. And it said, because you had a plan, like you worked. Everything I've done in life, whether it's marriage, whether it's kids, there is a plan of attack. I mean, it doesn't mean I have to have every minute and every item planned out, but I knew I wanted kids. We wanted to be in a position to have kids, but we didn't want to wait. We were never going to, we were 21. 23 when we had our first kid. We're not going to be financially stable. We just knew we'll figure it out, but we want kids. And so as I've gone through life, it's interesting because once you said that to me, I talked to Don and I'm like, you know what? We need to figure out how we're going to do this. And he ended up retiring. He had a 401k. The housing market came where it was a boom. We had a 25-year home that was in perfect shape. And I said, I'm low risk. And it just got me really laser light focused. If we are going to do something, how are we going to make it come true? Because we both wanted that. And Don never expected me. Never, because I'm so low risk. Every time I say, well, what do you think about it? And I'm like, that's interesting. He goes, well, that's a no. Because if I didn't commit, he knew I was just giving him a line to get him by. But there was one day I said, I think we should sell the house. The housing market is booming, but we're at the end of it. I think it's going to come down. It's starting to kind of die a little bit. And I said, so let's get with that person that Brandon worked with, our son. And let's sell the house. He goes, what do you mean now? And I said, yeah, let's get a hold of him. He goes, oh God, because then he was like, I got to fix the fence. I need to do the pool. We need to paint. He nearly cut his finger off, trying to fix the fence. And I'm like, let's go. And so we did. We ended up selling the house in the peak of the market. It sold in like 10 days while we were on vacation in Florida. And he goes, well, now what? I said, well, he was looking through land and I was like, yeah, that one's okay. Yeah, that one's okay. We made a couple offers that didn't go through because we got outbid like everybody did back in the day when the housing market was booming. But all that to be said, that laid the groundwork for us to hit our goal. I had to make a move that wasn't as comfortable for me in faith and in financials, that I said, okay, for this to happen, this has to work. And what is our fallback? Because if it didn't kind of go exactly as we were hoping it would, I needed to know we were still good because I'm the one that's low risk. Don will take risk all day long. And thank God he did, because when he took risk, it has paid off. Like he's got I say kahunas. He's got the kahunas to do it.
Yeah.
I don't. If he asks me, so he's just like, hey, I'm doing this. And I'm like, okay. And he's invested in some stuff. And it is really, he read about it. He made sure he made kind of good decisions, but on his own. And now we have a financial advisor and got all those things lined up to start helping us. All that to be said, as we navigated it, not only do I no longer, I'm not interested in Southwest. But then I wanted to be, okay, I want to be in the city manager's office. Okay, now I want to do, and I just started, what do I need to do years in advance? Gaining knowledge, putting myself in a good position to compete, kind of figuring out what you want. And as we move through our careers or personally in life, I think you need to know where you want to go. And you got to start making steps towards that, not just kind of ambling along, hoping it lands in your lap. You've got to have a diligent effort to set the path forward. How am I going to reach what I want to do? And I relied on people like you and others that I trust that are not just going to give me the answers I want to hear, but are going to press my thought of what are you doing about it? You know, aligning yourself with a few people that you can trust that help you kind of see the path forward, where I was a little bit nervous to step. Make sense?
Yep. How many steps ahead did you need to know before you took action?
I think just a couple. I just needed to know to get here. Here's what, like, of course, on the land, it's like we need some dollars. And what I wanted was outside the range of affordability. So Don started stepping it back, and he's like, but if we because I was trying to find a place that had a house, that already had the garden, that had the chicken coop, you know, and Don's like, babe, we're going to have to remodel. That's going to take another 40, 50, 60 grand. Like,
well, and for context,
and he found the land.
For context for the audience, so she and Don needed some acreage, and they needed some significant acreage because they want to hunt and they want to be able to hunt with rifles. And so you need some acreage for that.
Correct.
So they were looking for something in the neighborhood of 100 acres ish.
Yeah.
And they were looking they were willing to look out of state.
3 hour radius from Carrollton, Texas.
So, you know, they kind of have your heart set on staying in Texas, and of course pricing wouldn't allow you to do that. So Arkansas, that got some consideration because they had deer leases in the past in the state of Arkansas, so they had some familiarity with Arkansas, but probably a little too far away.
Yep, it was about a 4 hour. Yep.
You know, so they ended up finding something in Oklahoma. So there's the context for the audience.
And the Oklahoma, Don, as he started stepping it back, said, you know, we can get a lot cheaper raw land. We'll have to bring in electric. We'll have to bring in, but it gives us so much room, and you can build what you want. From scratch, new home, not worrying about plumbing, not worrying about HVAC, not worrying about what's going to have to be repaired, replaced, getting rid of old trash, tearing stuff off the walls, and best thing we ever did, you know, but it's a process. So unfortunately, it was a great time to sell. It was a horrible time to build because construction prices were up. Literally, wood prices were 40% more than they would have been the year prior. I mean, we paid a lot to build, but what we decided on is now we're just, as we save, now we're working on our fence, and Don's building a fence because we're not in a big old hurry. We've got 85 acres. We got a pond that I wanted so I can fish that was stocked. We've got a beautiful house. It already had a shed, so he had his workspace. So all of those, did it have everything on the list? No. But everything on the list is feasible. It's just going to take more time. So we're building a fence. We just finished getting the base garden beds set up. Nothing in them yet, but we worked together to get 3 beds done as a starting point. We just sodded the land. Seeded it. You know, we've been there 2 years, but we just put seed down, and it's beautiful. All the grass is coming in. It just is a little at a time, right? We're just doing a little at a time.
Yeah, but you started out with it pretty much hitting the non-negotiables.
Correct.
You know, the non-negotiables were it needed to be at least above a certain size.
Correct.
And so size-wise, it hit it.
Hunt.
Price-wise, it hit it. Time, you know, the distance away from DFW, it hit that. I mean, it seems to me, and going back, those were the three biggies.
That's right.
You know, and the other stuff, it was like, you know, we'll figure that out as we go. I think so many people get wrapped up in, I know what I want, and if I can't see in advance every step between where I'm at and where I want to be, then I'm not even going to take the step toward it.
Yeah.
Which I think is just a huge mistake because, well, I've said it before on the show, and it's the same thing that I asked you, is how many people have set their sights on something, set it as a goal, and you didn't achieve it.
Yeah.
Would you say most of the things that you've pursued, you have achieved? And every audience and almost every person that I ask says, yeah, I pretty much have achieved everything I set out to achieve.
Right.
And then I'll follow up. Well, it kind of makes you wonder if are we dreaming big enough?
Yeah.
You know, are we planning methodically enough? Because you and I both know it's the hesitancy to start, I think, that kills so many dreams that could be turned into goals.
And it's moving. It does not have to be perfect. You've heard me say before, progress, not perfection. You just need to continue moving in the direction you want to go, one step in front of the other. You know, even I remember back in the day, I was working in private sector. This is 30 plus years ago, working in private sector. And I was like, man, it's going to take me 7 years just to get to all of the benefit areas. To get to LTD, I had to be there 18 months. To get to life, I had to be there 18 months. Laterals. And I took a step back and went to the city of Carrollton. It came up for a benefits specialist or benefits analyst, I think it was called. But I got everything. I read the description. I'm like, man, this is dental, retirement, pay, compensation. So I was like, well, yeah, I'm going to do that. And here I am today. That led to everything else in my life, just choosing a little bit of risk, feeling confident. It was in my hometown. You know, I'm like, man, I'm just going to do that. A little scary because I went from a supervisor to an analyst. But here we are. I mean, you just have to be wise, and kind of go for it if it lines up, you know, and just keep taking steps forward. And when I didn't want to do Southwest anymore, I was like, no, I want to be a director. And then I became a director, and then it's okay, now what? And I was a director for a long time, and I was completely content. And then a couple years ago, I was like, man, I think I want to be in the city manager's office. How am I going to get there? And I just started meeting with directors. How do you do economic development, and why is that important to the city? I just want to understand, because I was HR at the time. We don't get interfaced with that at all. Met with the finance director trying to understand how bonds work. I hear him talking about it, but I just didn't understand it. And so that lined me up just with interest to have a little bit more knowledge, whether it was here. I didn't know if that opportunity was going to be here or elsewhere, but I wanted to be able to speak to things and really understand their impact to a city, because I love city work. You know, I love that you can feel the impact in a city.
How important?
All those things are important.
How important has visualization been in the process for you in that goal setting? In other words, being able to see yourself with this land in Oklahoma or wherever it would have been.
Well, for me, I had to know how much I wanted that as a passion so I can achieve it. So I knew how important that was to Dawn and I, and for our family. We wanted our family and friends to have a place to come to. And I could see that in my head because we had leased for 15 years between Arkansas and Texas. I knew what that felt like. And for it to be ours, we had so many issues with people stealing our stuff because the land is not yours, and other people go through there. Cameras were missing. They'd take stuff. They'd take our heaters. They'd take whatever. And to know that it's ours and our investment of time and energy, visualization was key. You have to know where you want to go. You just have to know where you want to go to get there. And I would encourage our audience, if you're thinking about it, just do you need to put it on paper? Not necessarily, unless that works for you, but you've got to know, what do I need to do to get where I want to go, and not just keep sitting here. You are in control of you. You dictate your next steps. Now, you may have to wait for some opportunities and compete, and not everything will land, right? But you've got to take a step forward and go for it at times to get there. Certainly, there's some people that are lucky enough for it to land in their lap, but most of the people I know had to work for it. In fact, I can't think of people that just got lucky. I mean, unless you know people. I've always, my whole life, from age 14 forward, I had to work for everything, and I had to work hard. I'm not the smartest person in the room, but I'm a hard worker, and my work ethic has proven that's what's gotten me probably the most, and my dependability, whether it's personally in life. I'm dependable, I'm reliable, I'm honest, I'm genuine. Those kind of things pay off in work and in personal life.
Well, there's outliers, I'm sure, but I do think luck comes to those that are prepared, and those that are prepared are the ones that are putting in the work.
Yeah.
To the visualization and stuff, it's interesting to me. So Lisa is a longtime director of HR, highly regarded by city management office. But really, when we first met, I don't remember any conversation about ascending up the food chain, leadership wise, to be an ACM, a DCM, or any role that has to do with city manager. Perfectly, as you said, content to be an HR director. But then at some point,
it turned.
And at some point, she began to see herself doing something one level up.
Yeah.
At CMO level. And I don't know what it was that prompted that, but that would be my argument here, or my encouragement to our audience. Until you can see it, don't expect the world to see it. Mm-hmm. Until Lisa could see herself being in a role that was different from being an HR director, I think the world pretty much, you're an HR director. Mm-hmm. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's perfectly great, and she loved it. But then she started seeing herself in a different way. And it's interesting to me that an opportunity came her way that she didn't even expect. Mm-hmm. I don't think that's luck. I think it's preparation and it's hard work. But I also think that there's something to you being able to see yourself as something other than what you already were.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I agree. And it's the work and the interest. You have to, as you always said, Randy, you have to tell your story. So there are key people that I would talk to and say, I think I'm interested in this. I remember talking to Tom, and I said, I'm thinking I want to do this. And it was a lunch. He'd already retired. And I said,
Tom Hart, the ex-city manager, retired city manager from Grand Prairie, long time, highly regarded.
Yes. And he said, I think I may want to do this. What are your thoughts? And he said, you'd be fantastic. But you can't be black and white. Rules in HR are very different than the city manager's office. You got to figure it out. It's all gray. And he said, stay gray. You're going to have to go gray. And I was like, okay. And I had him explain more because I thought I was very gray in my head.
Yeah, right.
And he goes, well, you do evolve to where we need to go, but you start out as a rule follower. And he said, in HR, we need a rule follower. We need somebody that knows the law, follows the law, and doesn't let us tip our toe on the other side of the law. He said, you kept me out of jail. I like being kept out of jail,
Right.
But he said, it's just not that way in CMO. You're the troubleshooter. You're the figure it out. How do we do this and stay on course? So it was just an interesting, because I didn't see myself that way, but great. I trust him. And I was like, okay, I've worked with him 20 years. If he sees it that way, I'm going to have to really work to make sure others see me as gray, because maybe I'm not as gray as I thought I was. But that helped a lot. And I started talking to my leadership team and saying, this is what I think I want, whether it's here or elsewhere, because they aren't going to hold me here. If an opportunity came up, I knew them well enough that they would support me going out. They wouldn't want to lose me, but they would never stop me either. And so I always appreciated that. And I think when you start telling your story of what you'd like to achieve and you're respected and trusted, they helped me accomplish that. You know what I mean? They helped. I'm not sure, had I not said anything, if that opportunity would have ever come up, because they wouldn't have known I wanted to advance. Now, maybe I would be in the thought process, but once it's known and I'm working towards that on my own, I think that I suspect, I don't know for a fact, I think that really did help them know there was interest and I wanted growth.
Yeah, well, and it takes courage to put yourself out there like that.
Yeah. And I would have been content being an HR director. You and I talked about that a long time. I would have been just fine. That is my passion. That is my love. That's where I grew up. But challenges are nice too. And I like using my brain. I like learning. I love to learn on anything. And this has certainly provided that.
Thanks for watching and listening to Grow Great, the City Government Leadership Podcast. Our website is growgreat.com. For Lisa Norris, I'm Randy Cantrell. We hope you'll subscribe to the show, and we hope you'll tell a friend.